Thank you. Thank you so much. So you gave us a good idea about what are these benefits that we get in terms of the digital twins and also the geospatial transformation in terms of infrastructure, town planning, public safety, resource management, and all that, right? So this is quite interesting. Can you share with us an interesting application that you've done, right? You've been talking to me about some of them in the past. I do remember one of them was about putting down these fires, the forest fires, locating it. Why don't you share some for the benefit of the audience?
Sure, sure. So, one of the key challenges in the utility industry really is forest fires, right? And forest fires starting from these transmission lines that run through these dry forests. If you especially look at the western part, the west coast of North America, there have been several cases where companies like PG&E had to end up paying billions of dollars in terms of compensation, or they were liable simply because they were not able to manage their assets, their corridors well, right? And one way that we are helping solve this whole issue is by doing vegetation analysis for vegetation management, where we are mapping these corridors using LiDAR technology, aerial LiDAR technology, and creating the entire digital twin of the entire corridor. So with the LiDAR technology, we're able to pick up all the data, be it land-based data, be it all the conductors, guy wires, all the asset information, and then we classify this data based upon on the level of information that's required to do analysis. Then once we do the analysis, we also look at the vegetation growth. We bring in other data sets, such as vegetation data, and are able to sort of predict, not only just create the digital twin for them to manage and where they need to go and cut these trees, but also be able to predict as to what and which areas and when which areas are the most vulnerable areas, and which months could be the most vulnerable in terms of maintaining these corridors free of any of these tree falls or any of the vegetation catching fire, which is a big regulation now. In the US, we have been on the NERC teams for years now and been mapping these corridors. We've done a lot of innovation around that. It's very expensive to collect this data through LiDAR year on year, but now we are using digital imaging, using high resolution picture photographs to actually do what's called pixel to point, and actually extract the point cloud data from these images and drape it on the initial LiDAR data that we've already created, and do similar analysis. And finally, all this goes down as simple, what we call map books, as PDF files, that gives you the high, medium, low vegetation, provides all the information to the field crew to go and actually fell these trees and do the actual vegetation management, the boots on the ground, which they used, in some of our clients still, I'm surprised, in the US, still plot them out in drawings and carry them in their trucks. But some of them use, tough pads and iPads with all the information available to them, exactly where they need to go and cut the trees. So this is one very good example of how 3D data or digital twins is helping in at least controlling the forest fire. So
Great. Thank you so much. What do you see is the future outlook for this geospatial technology and the BIM business? We call it as the building intelligent management systems and the digital twin. What do you think is the future?
No. So if you see, these two industries have been very sort of isolated earlier. The geo industry has grown separately. The engineering services, the BIM, the building information modeling, again, is nothing but creating a 3D replica of the the built environment, right? When you talk about buildings, you talk about indoors, right? Ultimately, we're still dealing with spatial information, be it outdoors or indoors, right? And today we are seeing a lot of that integration happening. The new buzz is geo BIM, is how do you integrate geospatial information with building information models, right, to give a seamless experience to the consumer or to the stakeholder, right? And we see the industry really moving in that direction. A good example is, the Esri conference, user conference, it just sort of concluded in San Diego yesterday. And the whole talk was all about GeoBIM. Esri being Esri was a hardcore geospatial company, and then Autodesk being a pure engineering, software company, never spoke to each other. But today they've come together to create this whole concept of GeoBIM. And I think it's a wonderful, move where I think the entire industry can benefit from it. But the challenges would be, how do you integrate? Because we talk about locational information, your XYZ information, providing that kind of accuracy to provide that in a building is not going to be easy. There are some technologies and methods that have to be used, which of course Magnasoft has that secret sauce, because being both a BIM company as well as a geospatial company, we have created some of our own tool sets and workflows to manage that. But some of the use cases are very, very interesting. For example, today when you order food on say Zomato or on Swiggy, or DoorDash or whatever, right? The last mile has always been a challenge, or even Amazon for that matter. The person comes close to your house and then calls you saying, I'm here in your locality. Now, if it's a large complex where you have thousands of apartments, either they drop it somewhere outside and you have to walk, or the person, if he's allowed to come in, he or she's allowed to come in, will finding your apartment, or finding your apartment on the 12th floor or 13th floor, door number so and so, in a hotel, is always a challenge, right? How do you solve this issue, right? And that's where GeoBIM comes into play, where it gives you a seamless navigation system that tells a person right from point A, the pickup point could be miles away, as the person comes into the apartment complex, all the way up to the doorstep, providing that information, right? And let's say if it's a large package, then making sure that there's enough space, which lift to take, which door to take, giving that seamless sort of experience, so that crucial time is saved for last mile delivery. And apparently 23% of the cost really goes in the last mile, and the time. If that time can be saved, then the person can do, I believe, at least 5 more deliveries a day, is what the statistics and reports say. So creating that environment is using this technology is one such use case. Second use case, you've been hearing about a lot of shootouts, and recently in campuses, in schools and colleges in the US. Today, if you look at, if you go to a hotel and see a map, a fire exit map, it's behind the door of your room. It shows you are here, and then in case of fire or in case of emergency, this is the route to take. Now, tell me, if you're a common man, how will you be able to find out how to get out of this place if the place is new, or if it's an arena, a stadium, right, or an airport, public place? How do you know how to get out from a multi-level, place like that? Now, that's another very strong use case, where if you have a complete 3D model, a BIM model of the place, a well-modeled system with a good navigation system indoors, which also gives you contextual information about the outdoors, right, with all the exits and things like that, and that completely integrated into an app or a system, which can actually help save a lot of lives. And some of the initiatives that are happening with the E911 in the US are all looking at that. There's now a mandate that the Z, the Z, the height be mandated. This is mandatory for all the telecom companies to provide that, in case when you do a distress calling. With that location coming in, but where's the contextual data? You might get your height, but how do you know you're on the 12th floor or 13th floor, or you have to get rescued from 15th floor? And that's where companies like ours are doing a lot of work in integrating this geo information and the BIM information to create applications, for the industry.
Great. So you talked about a lot of experience that you have overseas, right? I wanted to also touch upon the topic of what's happening in India.